When our fellow Americans deposit their earnings in a U.S. bank or entrust the government with their tax dollars, they do so assuming that their money will not be used in ways which undermine the security of our very nation and, frankly, of the world. The legislation we are debating tonight is a package of bills designed to prevent the Obama administration from further undermining the trust of the American people and the security of our nation, as well as the security of our allies. Under President Obama's nuclear deal with Iran, formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or the JCPOA, the administration agreed to authorize the export of civilian aircraft to Iran. What the JCPOA did not include was authorization for U.S. financing of those sales. As Treasury Secretary Jack Lew said in April at a Council of Foreign Relations speech, quote, "Iran complied with the nuclear agreement. Therefore, the nuclear sanctions are lifted. I think that is a process that is becoming more and more clear. Keep our part of the bargain there. But the U.S. financial system is not open to Iran, and that is not something that is going to change," end quote. And again, that was Secretary Jack Lew in April of this past year. Well, Mr. Speaker, something changed. In September, Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control issued licenses to Airbus and to Boeing, permitting the sale of up to 97 airplanes to Iran Air, the country's flagship state-owned carrier. These licenses didn't stop there, however. By going beyond the scope of the JCPOA, they also authorized U.S. financial institutions to, quote, "engage in all transactions necessary to provide financing or other financial services," close quote, related to the Iranian Air orders. My bill, H.R. 5711, would prohibit the Secretary of Treasury from authorizing U.S. financing through American banks in connection with the export of commercial aircraft to Iran, just as the administration claimed was U.S. policy to begin with. This bill would keep Americans' deposits away from a country that the President's own State Department calls, quote, "the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism," and which Treasury has designated as, quote, "a jurisdiction of primary money laundering concern." Let me repeat that. The State Department itself says this is the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism, and the Treasury Department has designated a jurisdiction of primary money laundering concern. How many more red flags need to go up? Under this bill, Americans would not have to fear that their savings are being channeled to Iran Air, which was sanctioned by Treasury in 2011 for ferrying soldiers and weapons of war to Syria, the site of a 5-year conflict that has claimed 500,000 lives and displaced millions more. This is the same Iran Air that a UN report concluded had shared ballistic military technology with North Korea, and the same Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps whose deputy commander called for an end to Israel, making note of more than 100,000 missiles that were ready, quote, "for the annihilation, the wiping out, and the collapse of the Zionist regime," end quote. Additionally, research by the Foundation for Defense of Democracies shows that Iran Air's support of the Assad regime continues to this very day. Why should U.S. banks and their customers be implicated in Iranian atrocities? I would submit that there is no reasonable answer to this, which is why this common-sense prohibition, when offered as an amendment to this year's Financial Services Appropriations Bill, was passed by this very body, the House of Representatives, by voice vote. However, this bill goes even further, Mr. Speaker. Not only will H.R. 5711 protect Americans' bank accounts, it will prevent their tax dollars from being used through the Export-Import Bank to subsidize aircraft sales to Iran. It would be through direct transactions or third-party leasing, which is becoming more and more common. This codifies and strengthens an existing ex-im prohibition that is renewed in annual appropriations bills. For that reason, this measure enjoyed the support of ex-im supporters and critics alike when it came before the Financial Services Committee. H.R. 5711 combines the text of 2 bills reported by the Committee on Financial Services, one of them sponsored by myself and the other by Congressman Roscom of Illinois. Both pieces of legislation were co-sponsored by our Democrat colleague, Congressman Sherman of California, who has devoted years to Iran policy both as a member of the Financial Services Committee and the Foreign Affairs Committee. And I'd like to thank Representative Sherman and Representative Roscom for working with me on this very important legislation package. And I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support this important bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.